So far what we covered yesterday, let's recap quickly. So we covered VPC and subnets, internet gateway, and route tables. Right? Yesterday we covered these things. So we still need to cover few things here. Elastic IPs we'll see later on, but let's understand first what is security group. Why you need a security group? Let's understand first. Okay, AWS Security Group. Security Group acts as a virtual firewall for your instance to control inbound, outbound traffic. When you launch an instance in VPC, you can assign up to 5 security groups to the instance. Security group act as the instance level, not this subnet level. therefore each instance in a subnet in your VPC can be assigned to different set of security groups. Okay, so what it says, let me let me quickly draw a small picture. Imagine this is your VPC. I'm not going to draw the availability zones and stuff. Imagine you have 3 subnets, right? What we created yesterday. We have 3 subnets. Okay, and within the subnet you can place your VM. Say if I want to place a VM, I can place the VM anywhere like this, inside the subnet. And you have your internet gateway. Okay, and if a request came in, you have your route table, right? Route table. It will decide whether you need to route table has the information about where to send subnet 1, 2, 3. Okay, so whatever the request that you have sent, it reached here. So imagine this is one Windows VM and you're trying to access it from outside. How you access it? Okay, so request came to here. Then there is one more component called should not represent this in a subnet, but yeah, let me represent like this. One more component called security group. Okay, security group will act as a firewall for this VM. Means, can you tell me on which port the Windows server will work, or which port Windows server will function? Any idea?
3389.
Okay, so by default Windows works on 3389 and Linux works on 22, right? So once it reaches the security group must be allowed with inbound traffic 3389 okay, means it is allowed in the security group, then only the request will pass to Windows Server. Otherwise, it will be blocked at security group level. Okay, this is the basic purpose of security group. It will keep on monitoring the request and it will have all the allowed ports in the list. So if the request came in, it will check via which port this request is going. This is going via 1446. Okay, fine. 1446 is allowed in my list. No, then block it. If the specified port is allowed, or if the required port is already allowed in the list, then it will allow the request to go inside. Otherwise, it will block at the entry gate. This is like more of right, more of your security check. It will keep on checking. If everything is okay, then it is it will allow. Otherwise, you will be denied. Similarly, when the request came in, if when the request came in, it will check what is allowed and what is not allowed. There is a white list of ports or white list of things. I'll show you how we can write these firewall rules and stuff in the security group. Okay, clear on this? Any questions? Fine. So let me go back to the yesterday's example. This one. Okay. So what is the IP range that we gave? 10.1. Right. So back to this. Now I have one VPC, right? Three subnets, and internet gateway is already created. The route table is already created. Let's go ahead and create a security group. So where you will create, search for VPC. VPC, it is already created. Yesterday we created three subnets, route table, and all the three subnets are associated with this route table. Internet gateway attached to VPC, fine. And elastic IPs, I'll explain later on when we need the elastic IP. Okay, so security groups, network ACLs, I will test it separately. Okay, how I can explain the network ACLs and the security group. Look at this picture. You have the metal scanner, right? Still, a security is scanning it. Security is manually scanning it. So why you need both? Okay, fine. So treat this as a not visible, right? So treat this as a network ACL and treat this as a security group, right? So we'll explain network ACLs later on. You can control at two places, but still people are using security groups more. So by default, you'll see the security group gets created. I don't want to use the default one. What I'll do is I'll create a manual security group. Under VPC, just give some description. That's it. Okay. Close. Okay. Security group has been created. Go to security group. Inbound rules. There's nothing. So you need to add inbound rules. ICMP means ping from where? Anywhere. Anywhere the ping must work. Okay. Another one, I said RDP. RDP 3389 from where? Let me see. Anywhere. You should not put this anywhere, everywhere. Please be careful when you are updating source anywhere. Fine. For now, just for testing, I have added both the interests. So network security sorry, security group has been created and allowed with few rules. So what is next? So we need to create instance and test it. Let's see how to. The VPC part is done. There's nothing to do on the VPC. I will discuss a couple of other points there. There's a lot of other stuff in the VPC part. I will discuss one by one when you're doing the other testing. Okay, so go to services EC2 if you want to create the instance. Instances. Just a second. Let me go to key pairs. I want to delete all the key pairs. Gone. So instances, launch instance. Okay, you'll see a lot of these images. So which one I want to deploy? Let's deploy Windows 2019 base image. Select, and what's the size? As I said, T2 micro with 1 CPU, 1 GB RAM is free for 12 months. Okay, select that. Next, how many instances that you want to launch? Only one server. Okay, and spot instance we'll discuss later. Network, under which specified VPC, and you have 3 subnets. Which subnet you want to use it? Let's put it on web subnet. Web, or let's put it on DB subnet. Okay, DB subnet, and you want the public IP because if you look at the picture, and what we have assigned so far, 10.1.0.0/16, and for this, what is the IP range we decided? 10.1.1.0/24. For this, 10.1.2.0/25, and for this, something like this, right? So I gave 3 different subnets. Now I'm placing VM in this subnet. If you want, we can place it here, we can place it here, we can place it here. Okay, right? You select any of this. But if you want to connect to this any of these VMs, you should have one public IP. Public IP, if you want to access your machine over the internet, you need a public IP. If you want to access the machine internally, you are okay to manage over the private network. Okay, now I want to access it from my home. So I need a public IP to access. So we'll give the public IP. AWS will allocate the public IP. So whenever you access the public IP, you have a list of public IPs maintained by AWS, and it will automatically allocate one IP to your machine. So when you are accessing it from your home, it hits the gateway. Gateway will check what is the public IP, and gateway will send it to respective private IP. It works based on some natting functionality that we'll discuss later on. But now what I need public IP, enable it. Okay, placement groups we'll discuss later on, capacity reservations, domains and stuff. Okay, so here you'll see the machine will be in so and so subnet, but you want to assign a manual IP, or it's fine if the system is assigned the dynamic IP. I'm fine with the dynamic IP. I won't assign any manual IP. Static IP. Next, by default you'll get some 30 GB storage for your operating system. Okay, if you want to add a tags, so like this you can add the tags to the machine. So if someone want to identify or someone want to notify you something, like this. Okay, you can mention so that the tags will be displayed. If someone want to contact or someone want to check, they can easily identify the owner and easily contact. Assign the security group, select the security group which we have already created, this one, right, the manually created one. Review, if you look at the system configuration, Windows 2019 T2 micro, it's the size, and it is using the security group what we have created, and these ports are already allowed. And the instance details under the subnet. Okay, and IP will be automatically assigned 30 GB. If you want additional storage, we can assign additional storage that we will see later on. And These are the few tags that we assign. Just if you just click on launch, it will ask you to create a key pair. That's fine. Have we provided any username and password to the AWS machine so far? Anywhere, if you check up.
No, we did not.
So in Azure, by default, it will ask you to assign a username and password while deploying the instance. But in AWS, it is not the case. So when you click on launch, it is asking you to create a key pair. What's happening? Let's just escape, launch. So a key pair consists of public key that AWS stores and a private key that as a customer we store it. Together they allow you to connect to your instance securely. For Windows, the private key is required to obtain the password, and for Linux, private key file allow you to securely SSH. Okay, so there is a key pair concept here. So what you need to do is you need to create a new key pair. Okay, AWS. Just give the key pair name and download the key pair. You'll get some M key. This is your private key. Okay, and public key is already saved with AWS. So if you supply this private key, it will validate along with the public key. If the hash values are matched, then it will allow you to log in. If it is a Linux server, if it is a Windows server, okay, you supply the same private key and it will match the hash values and it will check out the password for you. Fine. Just click on launch instance. Okay, so your instance has been now initiated. View instances. You'll see started deploying the machine, and see there's a public DNS. How we got it? Remember yesterday's class when we are discussing about VPC. After creating the VPC, you go to edit settings and edit DNS host names check mark. So if you enable the check mark, then only you will see the host names will be resolved. Otherwise, this column is empty. You will not see this column, and you got the this is system generated instance ID. Server is already up and running. Windows 2019 server I'm talking about, and public IP, private IP, right? Private IP is also automatically assigned, and public IP is also automatically assigned. What else we have? That's it. So demo VM1. Is there any username password? Nothing, right? So what I have to do, I have to go to actions, get the Windows password. So if I click on Windows password, it is saying you have to wait for at least 4 minutes after you deploy the VM. So just wait. Meanwhile, we'll see folder. This is a key. It's a private key where you'll use to log in into your Linux machine, or you can use the same key, by the way. Let me show you something different. I'll launch one more instance. This time I will deploy Linux, right? Same T2 micro. Can I put this in the same DB subnet? Yes, I can put in the DB subnet. Do I need a public IP? Do I need a public IP? or not? So this time I won't use the public IP. Let's see how we can log in. Okay, and next, add storage. By default Linux comes with 8 GB disk and Windows comes with 30 GB disk. Next, if you want, you can add the tags. I'm not going to add the tags now. Select the security group. This time select the same security group, but Linux, there is no ports mentioned here. We'll mention the ports later on. Review. See, you are you'll not be able to connect to the instance. Port 22 doesn't have mentioned in the security group, so we need to allow it. Okay, fine, continue. Right, so just launch the instance. Are you going to create a new key pair, or you want to use the existing key pair? I want to use the existing key pair only. Fine, launch the instance. Then you will not get the key pair once again. You already have the key pair. Use the same key pair, log in into Windows, and use the same key pair, log in into Linux. But remember, there is a tricky part here. So I have deployed one more machine here. Which one? Linux. But for this Windows machine, I have assigned public IP. Public IP I have assigned. For this Linux machine, there is no public IP. Only private IP I have allowed. So directly from internet, you will not be able to connect with Linux. But there is a way. Once you log into the Windows server, inside the Windows server, you can connect to the Linux server because both are in the same subnet, both has the same private IP, right? Once I log into the Windows server, from inside the Windows server, will you be able to log into Linux server? Possible? So for Linux server, you won't require any public IP. Let's test this as well. Okay, so go to instances, filter it out. Linux VM1. If you look at, for Linux VM, only private IP got allocated, no public IP, no DNS name, nothing. Only private IP, right? So both the servers are up and running, but for Linux server, we'll add the security rules later on. So Windows server, go to Windows server, select, get the password. Now it is asking for private key. Okay, select the private key which we have downloaded. This one, right? Decrypt the password. Now you'll see password has been successfully decrypted. We recommend that you change your default password. If a default password is changed, it cannot be retrieved through the tool. It is important that you should remember. So this is the username and the password. Copy the password and put it on. This is password. So how to access the machine? See, copy this name, connect, administrator, and what's the password? This is the password, right? The server. Okay, once it's logged in, let's see. Okay, so just open the command prompt. What is the Linux machine private IP? Close. Linux machine. What is the private IP? This is the Linux machine private IP. So both the machines are on same subnet. So they should ping. See, Linux machine is pinging. So how to access? I need putty session. So let me see. Okay, program files. This one, just copy it and paste it here. Okay, what else I need? I need this private key. This private key also needed. Just copy it, put it on desktop. Without the private key, will not be able to access it. Fine. Open putty session 10.1.2.184, right? So that's the IP. The default username is EC2-user is the default username for Linux. Remember. Okay, and you need to supply the key, right? Where is this key? Here. Go to SSH authentication private key file for authentication. Browse desktop file. Let's see. Open. Now you'll see you will get a timeout. Any reason why we get the timeout? Any reason? See, timeout. Because
Port allowed.
if you go back to the picture, I said for every server there is a security group which has the list of ports. So if the port is allowed, then you will be able to access the machine. If the port is not allowed, then you will get packet dropped. So imagine this is one machine. It must connect with one of the security group. Okay, does it has a security group or not? Let's check. Security group. It has a security group. Okay, Linux machine security group. This has a security group. This is the security group, right? But this security group doesn't have any Linux port mentioned here. So you need to edit inbound rules, add rule. Which rule? SSH add port 22 from anywhere. Save it. Okay, so rule has been modified successfully. Now try once again. See, it's working now. So I need to convert this. Let me do one thing. I need to convert the PEM file to PPK file. So softwares, I need puttygen open or run as administrator. Okay, so load From where I need to load the private key? Key import, downloads, import. Okay, so if you want to put the password, you can put the password, otherwise you can save the key. You can save the key. What is this? AWS March 20. Then close. You'll see there's one more file called private key, ppk. Just copy this key and paste it here. Close. Now click on what is IP 10.1.2.184. So what I did, I have a private key. I need to convert that into ppk file. How to convert? I've shown you using puttigen EC2 user at the rate IP address and go to authentication, browse. Now you'll see ppk file, click open, see directly logged in without any password. Okay, so what we did so far, go back to the picture. From my home, I've connected to the Windows server over the public IP. Once I logged into the machine, inside that machine, I logged into the Linux machine over the private. This connection is via public and this connection is via private. Understand the difference? Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
You got the difference between the private and public IP and how you
Yes,
access
sir.
the machines over the internet and how you access the machines over internal network within the subnet. Okay. My question is, if I place any VM here, okay, will you be able to connect to this VM as well over the private network or not?
No, I think no.
It's possible. Let's do it very quickly. Instance, what is the, I'll deploy one more Linux instance, right? Linux. Now I'll put it on app subnet, right? So far all the machines are in DB subnet. This time I'll put it on app subnet or put it on web subnet. Let's put it on web subnet. Means I'll put the VM here. So from this Windows machine, will you be able to access this machine or not? Okay, I don't want any public IP because I want to access it over the private. I don't want to add any tags now. Just test, assign the security group which we have created, review, simply launch it, use the same private key, launch. Okay, so go to instances, you'll see machine is already created. And what is IP? 1.183. Ping refresh. The machine is running. See, it's working. Okay, it's working, man. You can connect 1.183. Browse the same private key. Okay, see, it's working. It is running on a subnet, web subnet. If you want, you can check subnet, web subnet. This machine is running on web subnet, and the Windows server is running on DB subnet. So within the VPC, you create 1, 2, 3, and so on, n number of subnets. Those machines will talk to each other. You can restrict. If you don't want to allow, you have a network security group, sorry, security group, right? Okay, you have a security group, so you can block the port. So this server will not touch this server. You can control it, but by default, these three subnets are having internal connectivity. Clear? Any questions up to this? Yesterday's session and today's session. Madhuri, are you there? Hello. Please wake up, everyone. Your voice is not audible. It's fine. So let's discuss further. Now you understand what we did so far. We are in East US. I have created one VPC, and I've created three subnets, but I never placed the VMs in second subnet. Let's imagine I have two subnets, or let's say three subnets. I have one internet gateway, right? And request came in, goes to respective subnets. Inside the subnet, I have one Linux VM here, and I have one Windows and Linux machine. We tested a couple of things. I said for every at every instance level, you can have security group. I said I haven't created many security groups. I have created only one security group inside the VPC, and I've connected to this, and I told every machine, please follow me. I told every machine, please follow me, or please follow my rules. If I said allowed, then you will get the request. If I said denied, then you won't get the request. This is what security group says, and it has I'm not mentioning route tables and all. Okay, it is all in the backend. Imagine subnet 1, 2, 3 is VPC 1. What is the IP range? What is the IP range? 10.1.0.0/16. Now my requirement is I want to create one more VPC, and if I create one more VPC means you have to create few more subnets as well. Okay, one more subnet, and I have one more gateway, VPC 2. So VPC 2. Can I use different IP range? 172.16.0.0/16. Acceptable or not acceptable?
We can create.
Okay, now I'll place one VM here and I'll place one VM here. So by default, these two will talk to each other. This is what we tested here already, right? It is also acceptable. Now I want to send some data from here to here. Imagine this machine has a IP 172.16.1.189 and this machine has a IP called 10.1.1.183, right? So I want to send some data from this machine to this machine. Then how you can send? Imagine both the machines are on US East 1. Both the VPCs are created in US East 1. Now tell me. Understand the question first?
We need to create some rule, means internet gateway for the
Internet
both.
gateways are internet gateways are there. Internet gateways are there. Their responsibility is accepting the request over the internet. Okay. Now tell me, Madhuri. First of all, tell me, is it possible or not possible? Communication between two different VPCs is straight away. It is possible, or we need to do some tweaking.
No, it is possible. We can do this using some changes in networking.
Sorry, using what you said.
Using networking part, we can do this.
Yes, we are discussing the networking part only. We are just trying to understand how that was set up. And if you want to use it in your real time, how you can set up this kind of stuff in your customer environment. Okay, so remember, by default, this VPC and this VPC are logically separated. VPC is logical boundary, right? So by default, they cannot talk to each other. Means if you have a 500 VMs here, these 500 VMs will go via this internet gateway. Okay, and you have some 200 VMs inside this VPC. These 200 will go via this internet gateway. Okay, so if you want to exchange some data, or if you want to talk to the machine which is sitting on the other VPC, this way is possible over the internet. But I said both are sitting on the same region, on a same region in the sense in the same building, but still you are sending the data to internet. What is the reason? Because if the machines are sitting in two different locations geographically, one is in US, another one is in UK or something. See, one is in North Virginia, another one is in somewhere Europe. Then I can understand we should send this request over the internet and to access it. But both are sitting on both the machines are sitting on the same building. Okay, so there is a possible way which you call it as VPC pairing, just like your VNet pairing in AWS also. you have to perform VPC pairing. This we will do it tomorrow. Understand?
Yes.
That we will test it tomorrow. So we'll stop here. So any questions? So what we covered, just to quickly recap. Elastic IPs, we used it, but I haven't explained how that functions and how that one. This we'll discuss later on. ACLs, we'll test it later on, but security groups we created and we tested. Network connectivity between subnets. What kind of testing we did? Within VPC. Okay, if you have two VMs in the same subnet and you have VMs in a different subnet, over the private network, how you can access it, and over the public network from your home, how you can access it, and what is additionally what we discussed. Okay, key pairs mandatory. So these are the few things we discussed. Clear? So let me clear this off. Tomorrow what we will do is we'll see VPC pairing tomorrow. Okay, so let me stop here.